Hello, I'm Matthew Albright. This week we're talking about Ayn Rand. And as I said at the beginning, what I want to do is give Ayn Rand a chance. When she first comes out, or when you first hear about ethical egoism, and most people are thinking it's counterintuitive. How can selfishness be good? So I just want to walk through a bit of Ayn Rand's thinking to kind of kick us off on the discussion of Ayn Rand. First of all, of course, ethical egoism says selfishness is good. Ayn Rand saying selfishness is good. Now there's some caveats to that Ayn Rand wants us to think about. First of all, rational selfishness is good. And by rational, Ayn Rand is referring back to the Greeks' idea of knowledge equals good equals happiness. In other words, it's not just artificial goods, that any old pleasure, any old money, power, giving me your artificial goods. It's not that those are good because that's what you want, because you're selfish. Rational selfishness means that you've thought through, you know yourself, you know what happiness is, you know what your values are. So therefore, in order to accomplish that, in order to think through that, if you actually do that, then that is good. So first thing, it's rational selfishness. She also says that selfishness, of course, is actions which benefit yourself, but also uphold your values. So I think Ayn Rand is touching on something which again, at first sounds counterintuitive, but if you think about it, we uphold this kind of idea of selfishness as good even in our old culture. And here's the example. One of the examples that Ayn Rand actually gives is we think that our families are of value to us. So therefore, a rationally selfish person is going to protect, is going to take care of, is going to maybe even sacrifice for their own family, and that they should actually do that before they protect, sacrifice, and all the other virtues for a perfect stranger. And she uses a good example here. She says, now, if my neighbor comes over to me and says to me that her spouse needs this medicine that only I have, and at the same time my husband needs this medicine in order to survive, then altruism or unselfishness would say that I need to give the medicine to her. But, of course, most of us would say, no, you save your family first. You put your family before the stranger, or even the neighbor. Or even you have a hierarchy of family. You say, this is the family that I hold close. This is my sons, my daughters, my siblings, my parents. And then I'll start to think about my cousins and my second cousins, right? So Ayn Rand is touching on what I would say is a core, perhaps subconscious belief, that we look out for our own. And Ayn Rand would say, you're upholding your own values. It's a benefit to you to support your family, to protect your family, to serve your family good. And we would even say, I think, that in line with Ayn Rand, that it might be unethical for a person to hand over that medicine to their neighbor if this is going to end up killing their very spouse. I mean, I think most of us would say there's something intuitively wrong with that, and that, in a sense, proves Ayn Rand's point. Take care of your own first. Take care of your values first. And certainly, you look at international relations, and we're definitely, perhaps, internationally, we think of Americans first, right? The first thing we want to hear when there's some kind of explosion overseas is how many Americans died. And that's, again, much more with Ayn Rand's thinking, that of course you're going to take care of your own. Of course you're going to take care of those things which you value most. Now, again, in the selfishness thing, she is not saying that therefore you don't give to charity, or even that you don't work for your strangers or for helping your neighbor. Of course you do that, but you only do that if that is a value that you uphold. You only do that if you get some happiness from doing those actions. Or if not happiness, then you get a warm, fuzzy feeling, or you feel good doing it. And this touches then on where we come in with Ayn Rand's flip side of the coin, which is altruism is evil. Selfishness is good, That which benefits is yourself and your values, and that which you value is good, and therefore self-sacrifice, and she's really talking about pure, unadulterated self-sacrifice, is bad. And of course, this is where the eternal question comes from, the friend's question comes from, is there any such thing as an unselfish act? And I think when we hear that question, most of the time we're hearing that question because we're trying to figure out if there's ever a purely good act. And Ayn Rand says, no, think about it. If you actually can think of the ultimate unselfish act, it would actually be purely evil, says Ayn Rand. And again, you can play this out. If you totally sacrifice yourself, or you totally sacrifice that which you value, you sacrifice your family, you sacrifice your principles, you sacrifice your virtue, your pride, you sacrifice everything for yourself, for your neighbor or your enemy, then what you're actually doing is hurting somebody, and hurting somebody that you know the most about, that you should value the most. So I would say, at its core, it's contradictory. If you're saying that pure self-sacrifice, just going into something and sacrificing everything, and what I can think of here, the only purely ungood act I can think of is if a atheist who doesn't believe in any rewards after death sacrifices him or herself for the good of the enemy. Okay? There, you might have an unselfish act. Ayn Rand would say, very, very bad. And just to touch on things that circle that, that's pure altruism. We probably have gotten to a discussion that says there's no such thing as pure altruism. But also think about how people talk about altruism, that idea of sacrificing yourself for other people. And I think most of us would say that the martyr complex, which is that idea that, oh, woe is me, I must sacrifice, I have to, sacrifice my career for my family, sacrifice my money to my church, and I'm in misery, but look at how good I am. That kind of attitude, I think, most of us can look on and say, there's something wrong with that. That's not good. That somebody takes a kind of masochism to this idea of altruism. That it's all about undoing everything that we are and giving away everything we are and have and earned for the good of some higher principle. And of course, Ayn Rand is coming from Soviet Russia, so she saw this in regards to the relationship to the state, that people should not be sacrificing their values, their families, for the good of this larger idea of the state, that they should actually take care of themselves and their people first, and see if the principles that the state is advocating match up with that which they value. Anyway, think about it. I'm especially intrigued with her critique about that whole martyr complex, that whole idea that you have to suffer to be good. You have to give up everything to be good. And I think she challenges that and saying, in that sense, you're actually going against what we might call Judeo-Christian ethics, because you are hurting somebody, and you're deliberately hurting somebody. You're hurting yourself. And so anytime you hurt somebody deliberately, then you're doing evil. Anyway, give it a go. Give her a chance. I look forward to see what you say.